What's going on, guys? Cover Killer Nation here. Gonna go through and sweat through an album review because, my God, this is the first 90-degree day of the year, and for here in Pennsylvania, that's something you don't see all that often. Yeah, Drive Angry also was released today. Well, I'm gonna go with a whole another two-word idea. Review Naked. I'm not gonna do that. You guys probably don't want to see that. But today what I am going to review is CIRCUITAL by My Morning Jacket. Now, those of you who have been following my Facebook account, my personal, and maybe Cover Killer Nation, the official Cover Killer Nation Facebook account, links are going to be below, you know that I've kind of gone through a bit of a My Morning Jacket revival. And what I mean by that is that I recently just kind of rediscovered all the material that I've had from this band and just have decided to give it a listen, and I've really kind of fallen back in love with albums such as Z and Evil Urges. And then whenever I found out, of course, that CIRCUITAL was going to be released this year, and when it was going to be released, I instantly hearkened upon the idea of covering it, and here I am. Now, CIRCUITAL is an album where the very first track, Victory Dance, mentions ideas such as potential. You know, there's a wealth of possibilities out there, and that's something that this album clearly had going right in. And I unfortunately feel that after listening to the full body of this work, that there was a lot of potential on this record that was kind of squandered or wasted. Either that or the direction in which they took just really didn't take, at least in this reviewer's humble opinion. And the reason and my kind of justification of that is in the fact that there are songs, especially on the first half of this release, that are extremely strong. Victory Dance is a definite high point. The 7-minute-long title track is another one. The Day Is Coming, track number 3. The first three, the triad that really introduces this album to a listener, really paints very high hopes and a very and kind of presents a vision of majesty for this entire record. But I kind of feel that on the tracks that follow it, it really kind of squanders that opportunity. Now, this is an album that if you're a metal fan, you may not necessarily like. This is a band that you may not necessarily like. This is probably a little bit too low-key for you, although at times they do dabble in psychedelia, which is something that kind of warmed me back into this band with songs such as Lay Low off of the Z record, just a very romantic but kind of explicit song that just is amazing live, and you can see it live on YouTube, and it's just something that really enthralls you and entrances you. That's something that's definitely absent on this record. However, that's not something that the band should be doing with each and every song anyways. That's kind of a special track that's supposed to really ring out true in your mind, and if you really get into this idea that you have to make each and every song sound like one that is well received by a certain niche, then, well, yeah, you kind of run into the problem of everything sounding the same. Either that, or really, you catch lightning in a bottle once, and you can't do that 9 other times on a 10-track affair. Of course, there's the song on here that a lot of people on my channel will probably complain about, either that or at least mention, and that's the song Holding On to Black Metal, which seems to be this very anti-black metal idea where black metal is good in your youth. However, at a certain point in adulthood, you really have to move on from it. You have to kind of grow up, as they say. And this is a song that the Needle Drop also mentioned, Anthony Fantano. If you're not already a subscriber of his, what are you doing with your life? Another link in the description box that's going to be down there. Going to be links aplenty today, guys. And I really got to say that this is one of those tracks that I didn't really go through and have a similar experience such as him, where I was kind of rolling my eyes this entire time. I kind of just listened to the song for the music. And the music itself is pretty good, not to mention it isn't bad. In fact, compared to some of the other songs on this particular release, one could potentially call this a highlight. I know, it's weird. But aside from the subject matter and just aside from the way in which the construction really was concerned with the choirs and with kind of a very almost happy or giddy or very sunny side of this particular song, the subject matter doesn't seem to really pan out. I don't know, it's kind of one of these songs that I like, but I consider hokey at the same time. Almost a song that I would play more often than not as a joke than anything else. And then, the second part of this release, anything after Holding On Black Metal, just seems, I don't know, it just seems present, but not really, you know, it doesn't really do too much for me, with the lone exception of Slow, Slow Tune. And Slow, Slow Tune does not really even give me a lot of emotion whenever it comes to the song itself. On the studio, this is one of those songs where I think to myself, well, if I saw My Morning Jacket live, if I went and saw one of their live shows, this would be a really intimate and a very, very good song to hear live. There's a lot of hearkening back to the late 50s and early 1960s. There's a lot of Beach Boys that you can hear on here, but you can also see where the collective of their experiences and the collective of their influences can kind of come together on some of these tracks, but unfortunately, it's just not enough. It's not enough to save this record, especially whenever I consider the back catalog that really got me back into this band, that really got me going full force on the My Morning Jacket wagon, that made me want to see them live, made me want to go to Bonnaroo to see them live with Opeth and other bands such as the Arcade Fire and the like. That drive to see them live, it's still present for some of that older material, but there's very few reasons on this record. There's very few offerings from this record that kind of reiterate that particular sentiment in my mind. And that is something that I find to be just really unfortunate, because this was an event that I was really kind of looking forward to, and I feel let down. Maybe you disagree, or maybe you are disappointed as well. That's for you to reflect upon me. I have to give this album probably one of the lowest numbers that you'll ever hear on this channel, but of course, different style of music, so different rating scale. I just have to give it an average 5 out of 10. There's not a lot on here that really strikes my chord and makes me just go nuts. And I don't mean go nuts like it's aggressive and I need that. I just mean, I'm not sitting there thinking, wow, that's really awesome, you know, that's really great. It doesn't give me much of a reason to revisit this record. CoverKillerNation saying, sometimes you swing and you miss. This was a strikeout. But what new alternative or new, I guess, rock album should I review next? Tell me.